Dr. Chatterjee is a senior medical advisor of the India and the Southeast Asia region of a leading pharmaceutical company. Dr. Chatterjee is a MD pediatric with an academic and clinical experience working in clinical research pharma industry. She had a keen interest in patient centricity and innovation. Having said that, her topic for today is that she would be talking about some design thinking concepts. And with that, I pass on the virtual mic to Dr. Chatterjee.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join this conference today as a speaker. Am I audible to everybody?
Yep, we can hear you, Dr. Chatterjee. Welcome to the HITLAB Innovators Summit Day 3.
Thank you. Yes, I have a short presentation that will help me put across my points. So I'll just give a brief introduction about myself. I will minimize the screen. I'll go full screen now so that people are able to visualize better. By my qualification, by my training, I'm an MD in pediatrics. I worked in academia as well as in the clinical practice segment and hospital practice, OPD-based practice for quite some time before I shifted to the pharma biotech industry, and I've been working in clinical research ever since. I work in Sanofi as senior medical advisor for India and Southeast Asia. I have a keen interest in innovation, healthcare, health technology, and basically the intersection of all these sectors. Patient centricity is the topic that I'm going to talk about. And one of the key elements of taking these concepts forward, innovation, healthcare, digital, patient technology, is the concept of design thinking that we hear a lot about. So today's presentation will be focused on what are the design thinking concepts. I'll try to put across some of these in a few simple terminologies for everybody to understand. So I'll just okay.
Sure, go ahead. We can see your screen.
Thank you. So first we need to look at some of the important concepts of design thinking, and in that we will first look at very commonly used words in our day-to-day parlance. So what is the difference between invention versus innovation, right? So invention, innovation, creativity, discovery, we hear these words so many times. Invention is something which has never existed before. So bringing something into the world or into society or into the culture, which has not existed before, is what is called invention. What is innovation then? Innovation is the application of an invention in a useful way. Okay, it's the application of an invention in a useful way, or it, in simple terms, it could even be new ways of doing a thing or improvement of old ways of doing a thing. So when we speak innovation, it doesn't necessarily have to be something like a revolution or revolutionary. It could also be evolutionary. Okay, incremental innovation is what we mean by evolution. All right. So if that is clear, then we move to what is creativity. There's so many people in the world who are so creative. So what is creativity? Creativity is bringing an imaginative component to this field of innovation, invention, so that creative streak that people have is basically when we apply an imaginative component to that, that becomes creativity. Now, this creativity may not actually translate into an application or an invention or an innovation, but it is the skill set that a person has, the imaginative component. That is what is called creativity. Okay, so that is something that is very interesting here. Now we come to the concept of design thinking. So design thinking is a process by which we can approach the concept of innovation, and the main hallmark of design thinking is really a human-centered approach. So we are not, it is human approach that is a priority here. And when we say human here, the human could be anybody in society, a human being. If we look at the medical field, it could be a patient. If we look at a non-medical field, it could be a consumer, it could be a customer. Essentially, the human being is at the center of innovation. That is the concept of design thinking. Now we'll see how this happens and what contributes to a successful innovation through the lens of design thinking. So this consists of three components, as you see in the Venn diagram here. So there's the people component here, the human component, which is the circle in the Venn diagram. Add to that technology. And the third aspect is business. So when we look at the intersection of these three components, we really arrive at what will be a successful innovation. Now let me explain this a little better. When I say people, is really the human-centered approach that we are talking about. So people, very important pillar of successful innovation. We need to understand, is there really an unmet need? Okay. So we can apply this to our respective fields of work, fields of service. And when we keep people at the center, we can actually identify and think, okay, this unmet need that I'm thinking of, is this need real? Or it's not a real need at all. That classification is very important when we are thinking of people and the needs. Okay, so that will tell us whether that need really exists. A lot of thinking must go into the process of whether the need that I'm thinking today, let's say sitting in my office or sitting in uh, a conference, okay, is that a real need of the people? Now, to find out whether it's a real need of the people, I need to research. Apart from passive research or active research, I need to interact with the people and find out if it's really a felt need. Okay. When that is satisfied, then I look at the technology that will be used to do that. Technology is an enabler today. So it enables a lot of uh, practical applications to happen on the platform of technology. So I need to therefore see that, okay, if there is a real need that is there for the customer or for the consumer or for the patient, do I have technology as an enabler to do that? So is it possible for me to have some technology in order to sort out this, find a solution to this unmet need? And the third very important pillar is business. Okay, so when we are looking at successful innovation, then the important thing here is that will this product that will be the outcome of this endeavor, or will this service that I'm thinking of, is it going to be viable in the long term? Okay, so that is what is the business component of it. And when we combine all three together, in the center we see this point, which is the intersection of all three components, and this is the pillar of design thinking, which contributes towards successful innovation. If that's clear, we look at some of the technical aspects of design thinking process. So obviously one of the main aspects here is to explore. And with that, we will see the corresponding aspect. So as we saw, the human component, human-centered need is to be identified first. Therefore, we need to be going out in the fields, reaching out to the concerned stakeholders, identifying the needs, and also discussing whether the needs are real, to what extent, what is the stratification of the needs. So that requires a lot of groundwork. And that herein comes the component of empathy here. Then, with all this knowledge, which might actually take a lot of time, exploration component, we come back, let's say, to the drawing board, and then we need to start creating. Creation is not a one-step process. It consists of several hours of brainstorming, because now everyone's come back from field work, everyone's come back loaded with customer-centric information. We need to look at all that information logically, segregate that into groups, and then we need to get the essence of all this field work that was done, all the patient-centered work that was done, and then we start really brainstorming and creating what are called prototype. Prototype is the first instance of the technical output that we are thinking of. And then finally, again, after a lot of fine-tuning stages of the prototype, again going back to the field, checking out with the stakeholders, coming back to the drawing board, improving, improvising, comes the process of implementation. And that's how before implementation happens, there are many iterations. That's how it's a very simplistic model of design thinking. Now, some components which I find very interesting and might be because looking at the theme of this conference and looking at the varied agenda, the variety of subjects that were discussed over the last 2.5 days. Today is day 3 of the conference. I think I would like to highlight one component of design thinking, which might be interesting to the audience here. That is this graph that we see. So I'll explain this graph a bit. So here is on the x-axis, what we have plotted is the range of unmet needs that we are talking about. If you see here, this is the usual. Okay, this is the usual unmet need that we are looking at customer segmentation, customer categorization, the need categorization. But then as we move towards the right of this x-axis, we will find there are also customers, patients, consumers that have special needs. If we look at the customers or patients, or we look at the, what shall I say, the market, okay, then the mainstream users are the ones, they are the ones that are plotted here. So if we join this Y with the x-axis, most of the marketing strategies of the industry today cater to what are called the mainstream users. Okay, they are our regular customers. We know the regular unmet needs, but there is a lot that needs to be done in this segment, something like the blue ocean strategy, which is related to the customers that have moved away from the usual needs. They are called this, they have special needs, which I will explain a little later. And they are the lead users. And you can see not much of the market is covering their needs today. So this is an area where a lot of patient-centric effort, a lot of design thinking will be needed, and a lot needs to be done in this field. Now let me explain the difference between a mainstream user and a lead user. Okay, a lead user is somebody who is using a product as for some time and has already identified some of the what shall I say, the improvements that the product requires in regards to that particular customers or consumers or patients profile or lifestyle. All right, so this is who is a lead user. So a lead user will not wait for the, let's say, the industry to come up with another version of the product a few years down the line through their market research, etc. That because that is a big gap for the lead user. A lead user needs an instant solution. They have bought the product from the market or they have used the services and they've already identified a gap which their segment of the population that has some special need is not able to use that product as effectively as, let's say, a usual mainstream user. Now, will they wait for that particular sponsor, that particular industry or the company several years down the line to come up with product improvements? They cannot wait because they need, so what do? They start improvising the product by themselves. So they themselves then become innovators. Can you imagine the bandwidth of this population? Because they themselves are actually the end users of the product. Okay, or let's say they are the customers or the consumers, but here the consumers themselves have become innovators because they have unmet needs which they feel they can solve by themselves by improvising on the product. And what rich feedback the industry can receive or the sponsor company can receive, or let's say uh, the whole healthcare domain can receive from the lead users. If we were only going to go and do this field work, identify the lead users, listen into how they have improvised the products and what innovations they are suggesting to the products, and we can just bring those back to the drawing board and give them the improvised product that they can use. And interestingly, the what shall I say, the improvements which are identified by the lead user today will actually be the felt needs of the mainstream users tomorrow. This is very interesting. So one of the things that we feel we can do, I feel also that we can do, is that we need to touch base with the lead users. We need to discuss with the lead users, bring those experiences back to the drawing board, and then start looking at our products from those perspectives as well, so that we are able to cater to all segments of society. So that was an elaborate discussion, and I'm sure we could identify such uh, improvisations, okay, in every walk of life. Every walk of life. This is not limited to healthcare industry. It's available everywhere. We step out of the house, we look at our society, we just walk in our neighborhood, we will find lead users improvising on existing products. So that's another concept. One more concept that's very relevant today in the era of sustainability is really designing a product is not sufficient, or designing a service is not sufficient in itself. It has to be designed for the environment. So the life cycle of a product has to be such that we are thinking about our future generations in terms of how is it going to be sustainable, recycle, reuse. All of those concepts also need to be um, part of the design and development process of any product or of a service. That's why I included this slide here. Now I will go back to the sector from which I am, which is the healthcare industry, the clinical field, and patient centricity is what I'm going to talk about. And these concepts that you see here, they are not confidential information. They are curated from public domain. So some of these examples of where design thinking has found its application in the world of healthcare is enumerated here. Now you will start understanding what lead users are. So there are patients with rheumatoid arthritis. As we know, rheumatoid arthritis is a disease which has a very large prevalence worldwide, and it consists of pain, it consists of stiffness, swelling, reduced mobility in the joints, right? So people with rheumatoid arthritis, patients with rheumatoid arthritis, they don't have the dexterity of the hands, unlike people that doesn't have rheumatoid arthritis or any kind of arthritis. So if they were to maneuver a product, sometimes it's very painful for them. Okay. Therefore, now look at the concept here. Can the pre-filled injection for rheumatoid arthritis? Now we all know what pre-filled injections and syringes are. So can the pre-filled injection for rheumatoid arthritis, can it be repackaged to suit their needs better? Now here comes the concept of design thinking. So this is the thought. Again, you see the unmet need here. You see the niche requirements of the population here. You see the lead users here, and how the industry improvised so that they were able to use the pre-filled injections better. So this is one application of rheumatoid arthritis. Second is, let's look at IBD. IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. Now, patients with IBD, they have a lot of stress, particularly at the time of traveling, because uh, of the nature of the disease that they have, the stress of traveling. They have special dietary requirements, okay? And the urgency to use the washroom in patients with IBD, it cannot be predicted. They could be required to use the washroom anytime. Now, now we know that this is a category of patients that has specific needs, very unmet needs. When they travel, therefore, design thinking, I may say, or patient centricity, which is a main component of design thinking, as applied to this population. What could be done for this, and what was done really, was to understand the felt need of these people during air travel, let's say, and provide them with dietary requirements that is suitable to their dietary requirements. So that we have, let's say, a category of cafeteria products available in the flight itinerary, flight menu card that provides them with exact type of diets that they need during flying, okay, which is similar to the diet that they have at home. So they are not disturbed by the unfriendly menu on the flight, which will cause them much discomfort. Secondly, can we have these patients with their ID cards seated very close to the lavatories? That is something which can be easily done, and this is what was really done for these. So if they are, this is something like having them located at comfortable distances from the lavatory so that they have easy access when they need it the most. So again, this is an example of a service. The above was an example of a product innovation. This is a service innovation. We look at one more. 1/4 of all women avoid mammograms out of fear. Many women who are part of the audience today familiar with mammography. Now, yes, in many of the women in our society, in public at large, there is a fear of mammography. There's a fear because some of the fear is inherent to like what will be discovered when I go for a mammography. What if I have cancer, breast cancer? The other is not so much that, but it is also of the process of mammography. What do I anticipate? People are comfortable with chest X-ray. People know what X-ray is. People, many have gone for ultrasonography of the abdomen. They know what USG is, but people are not that familiar with mammography still. And many women will tend to avoid a mammography out of the fear. Fear comes from not being familiar, not much of awareness, unknown. Also, what they hear, just non-scientific, what they might be hearing from in general at large. So, if uh, if this is the unmet need that has been identified, certainly uh, one of the companies has come up with a product or a service, we may say, both product and a service that has really helped women alleviate women's fear of mammography by providing them with such an environment, such an ambience, and such an experience that makes them feel very soothed, that feel very assured, and they can really approach this process of mammography without much fear. So this has really helped. Then more people, more women are going for mammography. It leads to early detection of a disease where it exists and early treatment. So this is definitely a felt need that has been identified and has been addressed. Next, we look at children. Now, some children that need to go for imaging for whatever purpose, radiological imaging, there's a lot of fear and anxiety associated with children that are going for these, what shall I say, state of the art investigations. They're going for MRI, they are going for CT scan. Children are not acquainted with such environments. In many of these environments, they feel fearful, they feel anxious. Many children start crying. As a result of this, this was a very deeply felt unmet need. And then again, entire digital, what shall I say, an entire digital series was identified and prepared for children who are going for such radiological imaging so that they are able to, kind of be acclimatized. Their fear, anxiety is less. They remain distracted a bit. Also, they remain engaged with the whole radiological imaging process and they feel very assured. The main word is they feel a lot relaxed, a lot connected with what is happening. And this alleviates their fear and anxiety, which is a great boon for them as well as for their attending physicians, the technician who is performing the procedure, as well as certainly their parents. So these were a few examples that I picked up from public domain, just to give you an idea of design thinking. So now where do we stand? Certainly with this concept the audience is now very aware that we have miles to go as far as the field of innovation. And as I kept saying during this segment, that the innovation can not only has to be of a product, it can be of a service as well. So innovation can always be thought of as a product innovation or a service innovation. And sometimes a product has added to it a service innovation, and sometimes a service had added to it a product innovation. These we can explore in our uh, day-to-day lives as well. So there is nothing new about that. But we have miles to go. And what we can do, what can we do as an industry is something, maybe this is a very fit moment, a very fit conference for people to think about what can we do as an industry, because there is an unmet need everywhere. Every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, we look around, we can see unmet needs in our society. And I'm sure across every country in the world. So nothing can be done alone. We need to therefore break silos. This is very important. It's not possible within the what shall I say, the length and breadth of one individual person's lifespan to do to come up with so many innovations, so many products, so many services, address so many unmet needs. So the solution to this is working together. We need to break the silos. We need to have multidisciplinary collaboration. And this is the strongest pillar today because we have so many people. As you can see through this conference, I am talking on this Zoom meeting link. So with technology, the world has become pretty much connected because of the technological advances, the virtual platforms. We are able to collaborate across time zones. So multidisciplinary collaboration, and here I mean real multidisciplinary collaboration. It means we have to move out of our comfort zones. It will be a doctor who is working with an engineer who might be working with, let's say, a design thinker. And we might actually need people from society coming in. So patients themselves will be part of the multidisciplinary collaboration, the physicians, the technologists, the engineers, the designers, non-scientific people, because invention or innovation is not just science. It is both science and art. Innovation happens at the intersection of arts and science. So when we say multidisciplinary collaboration, it's really multidisciplinary collaboration. The economic part of it, the health economics part of it, the real world evidence. More varied the unmet need that we are talking about, the more varied is going to be the multidisciplinary teams and the wider the reach of this. We have to break the barriers between industry and academia. Nothing is a watertight compartment. Discovery, invention, innovation, all can happen together. Again, work across borders. And this is an example of this conference where people are invited from all across the world to be listening into the conference, participating to the conference as speakers, as panelists. So if this can be the reach of an Innovators Summit conference, we can certainly have many, many inventions and innovations that are happening worldwide just by multidisciplinary collaboration, multidisciplinary cooperation, all kinds of public-private partnerships, industry, academia coming together. Here is very important in this, what I began my talk with, the patient's voice will be supreme. So nothing is possible to do without the stakeholder in mind, and not just in the mind. The stakeholder has to be given the chair to come and sit and speak about what they need. As I talked about the lead users, let's invite the lead users to our, let's say, the industry conferences. Let's invite the lead users to company, conferences, any outreaches, etc., where the patient or the lead users, the whole patient community can come together and they can voice out what is it that they need. So patient centricity, patient's voice, patients as innovators themselves. We saw the reach of that. That is what is the contribution of a lead innovator, a lead user. Let all of them have the dignity. Let all of them have the freedom to speak that this is the requirement that they have. Diversity and inclusion, very important because we are working in a world that is diverse as well as very inclusive. So we need to include all kinds of diverse and inclusive voices coming to the table, coming to the drawing board, where actual innovation is or invention is happening. Now I come to a very interesting. I put up this cartoon in order to so that people will start thinking. It's similar to the chicken and the egg story. Did the chicken come first or did the egg come first? And we can keep debating about it. But the point that I wanted to put across here is simply that let's not innovate and ideate and invent the technology first. We can all sit in our, ivory towers and brainstorm, a whole team of engineers, a whole team of technologists, computer specialists, doctors, physicians, everybody, minus the patient, minus the stakeholder, minus the consumer, who will actually be the end user. So what's the whole point of inventing, innovating, spending so much money on projects where the product gets developed first, the service gets developed first, but when this is brought to the field, to the customer, to society, to the patient, there's not much buy-in sometimes. Why? Because their inputs, their unmet needs, their requirements were not factored in the first place. So design thinking is reverse of that. We will always have a human-centered design, a human-centered product. So this is something that needs to be imbibed when we are looking at patient-centric products and services. A lot of topics in this conference, when I saw the agenda, I was just browsing today morning, was also on where should one invest and post-pandemic era, etc. So one thing we need to remember, where should one invest? Well, investment may not always be at that is the most promising product or the most promising service. If then a lot of unmet needs will remain. Okay, so I would say the investment should be delinked from the product development or the service development, so that we are able to not include any bias in the product that is being developed, or not include any bias in the service that is being developed. The patient-centered development is foremost. And investors need to remember that if we only keep on thinking of what will be the return on my investment tomorrow, that tomorrow may be quite far, because to reach that return of investment, the whole R&D process, research and development, or product development or service development process will have its own pitfalls. And here we are talking about so many prototypes, so many iterations. So one of the important words here is patience. It requires enormous amount of patience before a product can really reach that prototype or iteration, which is of sound acceptability with the end user. So investment here is not something like I invest today, I get my returns tomorrow. We might not even get our returns on investment. But if there's an idea, it's a product, it's a service that's worth investing, well, then in due course, the return might be visible once the product passes through its whole design thinking life cycle. So that was another thing that I thought I should put across. And lastly, not everything can be digital. As we are seeing in our society today, in our environment today, not everything can be virtual, not everything can be digital. As I said, the human-centered component will require us to walk to the patient, walk to the customer, basically do the field work, meet the customers, the consumers, the patients, gather their feedback, give them that feeling of empathy, the feeling of connectedness, which is not always possible through digital. So it will really be a mix of non-digital with digital that will help us, adequately address the design thinking concepts and bring good solutions to unmet needs of patients, customers, and consumers. So with that, I end my talk. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak at this esteemed conference.